Hi everyone, this is Mason Winfield with another installment of Psi-Friday with Mason. You know, not all of our updates have to be directly paranormal. Some of them can be merely curious. And yet, a broad daylight automobile accident that's so unlikely as to be almost fated, I think that qualifies. This is the last ride of the Lone Ranger. A lot of people don't realize that one of the most famous creators of the age of radio, TV, and television was a Buffalo native. Francis Hamilton Stryker was born on August 19th, 1903, to a family in Buffalo, New York. They lived on Dearborn Street in Black Rock. And we don't know much about Mr. Stryker's adolescence, though he graduated from Lafayette High School. At about the right time in someone's life, he went to the University of Buffalo. And we don't know exactly what he studied, but he wasn't a maladjusted geek. He was in a fraternity. I think it was Theta Chi. He went to New York City before graduation, and he was working in theater. He ended up in radio work back in Buffalo for a station whose call letters were WEBR. It was then he might have gotten into a bit of writing for radio drama. He certainly did something that brought him to the attention of a radio magnate in Chicago named George Trendle. Now, I usually try to avoid forming a bad impression of somebody without looking into both sides of the story. But yet, when it comes to this Mr. George Trendle, my first impression is not positive. He recruited our man, Fran Stryker, to come to Chicago, where Stryker wrote some really colorful, dramatic, adventurous radio programs. I think Warner Lester, Manhunter, The Green Hornet, Dr. Fang. I mean, you know, some of these are really, dramatic names. In 1932, he came up with a pilot for the Lone Ranger. And the debut was in Buffalo, New York. And when it was discovered what a hit, the Lone Ranger and his sidekick Tonto and the Silver Bullets and, High Hole Silver, and, when they saw what a hit it could be, George Trendle tried to get the rights away from its true creator, Fran Stryker. And this, don't forget, was during the Depression. Fran Stryker had spent a lot of his money trying to help other people out. He was under financial pressure. He signed over the rights to the Lone Ranger for $10 in the offer of a steady job. And Trendle tried to pretend that he was the creator. I'll tell you, the theft of intellectual property is ugly. I hate it. It's happened to me, nothing that bad, but at any rate, Fran Stryker seems to have lived most of his life in Western New York, in Buffalo, in Elma, and Arcade. And he's not regarded as an art writer, not a great prose stylist. I don't see how he could have been. If you know how fast this guy had to write, at one point in his career, he was writing 156 scripts. That's like 3 a week for the Lone Ranger. And that's just one of his characters. So it's nice to see Fran Stryker, at the age of 59, getting some respect as a professional. He was offered a job at the University of Buffalo teaching, which was really good. I mean, he probably belonged there more than some of the people they had, because instead of just being able to talk about writing, this guy could show you how to launch a career in it. It was while he was relocating his family from Arcade, New York, which is southeast of East Aurora, that he lost his life, ironically, about half a mile from where I live. It was broad daylight on a September afternoon, September 4th. And it was a lot of people think the worst kind of crash is a head-on. It's a bad one, but there's an even worse kind of car crash. I don't know what the technical term for it is, but it's kind of a slant, where all the force of both cars gets channeled into a compressed area of each hood. The odds of a fatality are nearly certain in a case like that. And that's what happened at maybe 2 in the afternoon. Now, I've been over that spot, that section of Route 16, also called Seneca Street, Buffalo Road. I've been over that section several times to try to figure out what could have happened. All I can think is that there's a point where both sides of the road rise, and one side, say, swerves, the south lane seems to swerve to their left, and the north lane kind of swerves the same way, and maybe one side will see, hey, I'm going to go off the road if I keep going straight, so they curve back. The other side may not see it. I don't know. Whatever happened, it was a tragedy. And I wondered to myself, could that be potentially a cursed section of highway? Now, it takes more than one accident that I hear about, no matter how crazy. It takes more than one to get me thinking that. I do know that Route 16, Seneca Street, Buffalo Road, is part of an ancient native trail that went along water routes. It went along the Buffalo Creek into Buffalo, the city of Buffalo, which is where the Buffalo Creek and the Niagara River meet. But when it heads south towards East Aurora, it branches and starts following the Cazenovia Creek. But it was a very old trail. It was also the migration route out of Buffalo on that terrible night in 1813. It was actually New Year's Eve, when during the War of 1812, Buffalo was burned by the British. And a line of refugees was, in the night, trudging through snow and a storm down Route 16. They would have walked right by my house, right by the North Star Tavern, right by the Circle in East Aurora. And I've actually heard a few ghost stories over the years where people report mysterious apparitions, semi-formed, they're not full-formed, walking down Route 16, and they're always moving south. And it almost makes you wonder, could they be sight memories of the refugees of the Buffalo burning? At any rate, my friends, I have to say goodbye with a nod towards the creator of the Lone Ranger. Thanks so much for joining us again on the episode of Psi-Friday with Mason. We'll see you next week.